My name is Ira Savchuk. On paper, I'm a night shift cashier at the Biscayne Stop and Go. In reality, I'm the person who locks the world on Biscayne Boulevard exactly at 11 p.m. and checks whether anything that ought to stay still is moving behind the glass. I live in North Beach, rent a 2-bedroom, drive an old Toyota, raise 2 kids, Eva and Nikita, and I know the value of discipline. Our store pays above market not because the owner is generous. It's because we have rules. There aren't many, but they're strange. Follow them and you'll see the ocean and your kids in the morning. Break them and people stop seeing you. On his first night, I trained a new hire, Lucas Martin. He arrived in a blue sedan, parked across 2 spots, stepped out with his phone and an energy drink. Friendly face, overconfident eyes. We shook hands and walked in under buzzing lights and the smell of cheap floor powder. I showed him the aisles, the coffee station, the lottery terminal, the coolers, then got to what matters. Rule number 1. Never work alone. No matter who begs you. If your partner's out, call me or our manager, Miguel Soriano. Otherwise you aren't a cashier, you're bait. Lucas smirked. For robbers. I shook my head. 2 years ago, a guy decided to close the night alone. At 2:17 a.m., the camera showed him look up, like someone called his name. Then he walked into the stockroom and vanished. The back door was locked from inside, his phone was on the shelf, his car in the lot. Only emptiness on the tape and a cold draft in the stockroom. Rule number 2, after 2 a.m., we don't sell alcohol. Even for a tip, even under threats. Whoever's asking isn't themselves anymore. Rule number 3, if the lights flicker 3 times, go to the stockroom and stay there exactly 7 minutes. Not 6, not 8. Rule number 4, if a regular shows up, not quite themselves, don't meet their eyes, don't talk, don't let them touch you. You're seeing a familiar face, but it's not a person. It's somebody's attempt at becoming one. Rule number 5, never check noises from the restroom between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. Even if it sounds like someone fell in there, before closing it's empty. After that, it's no longer our geography. Rule number 6, at 11 p.m., the doors must be locked. Not 11:01. The moment itself. Lucas listened without really hearing. I know the type: smart, quick, unbelieving until it bites. At 9:47 a.m., man in a black hoodie walked in. Not late, not early, just appeared. That's Ray. He's not on payroll, not on the entry cam. Sometimes he shows up, takes black coffee with no sugar, and walks back to where shadows thicken faster. I poured him coffee and set it on the counter. He nodded. Lucas cocked an eyebrow. Why free? Because Ray helps. With what? With what the rules exist for. At 10:58, I stood with the keys at the doors. 10:59, I watched seconds on my phone. 11 o'clock, 2 locks turned. The city outside seemed to step back. I-95 sounded farther away. The wet air grew heavier. Aren't we 24/7? Lucas asked. We are, I said. Everything else isn't. The night moved as usual, truckers for coffee, fishermen for ice, tourists for anything to eat right now, lotto tickets for the sleepless. Miami after midnight isn't a postcard with palms. It's a damp, tired city where some things must stay closed. At 1:25, everything died: lights, emergency lamps, even the neon by the road. Lucas stepped to the glass. Back, I said in time. A blow hit the door. Then another. Shapes pressed to the glass and smeared across it, like fish to an aquarium, only not from inside out, but the other way around. Who's that? Don't look straight. Drop your eyes to the floor. From a dark corner, Ray slid out without sound, laid his palm on the aluminum frame. The shapes shivered like reflections on water and were gone. A minute later, the lights came back. Ray set down the empty cup and dissolved into shadow. Lucas exhaled, and 2 days later, he was smirking again. Power cut, kids banging on the door, you people and your myths. I knew he'd only learn the hard way. On Monday, he texted that he'd cover my night alone. I called, I wrote, "Don't work solo." He replied, "Relax, it's fine." Tuesday, 5:55 a.m. I came in. The door wasn't locked. Lights were pulsing. From the register to the corridor ran dark, wet drops. I didn't go farther than 3 steps. I phoned the manager and left. In the car, in the mirror, for half a second, I saw a figure in the doorway, too tall for a person. Then nothing. Later, Detective Andres Alvarez from Miami-Dade called. Calm, tired voice. "Ms. Savchuk, did you work with Lucas Martin?" "Yes." "His body was found behind the store. We need to talk." At the station, I spoke about the rules, as plainly as common sense allows. He looked at me like it's someone who'd lived through something that doesn't fit a report. "Why can't you work alone?" "Because then you won't hear it when the world tells you stop." He nodded and took notes. The camera showed this. 11:17 p.m. A hooded figure enters. 11:32, the restroom door opens by itself. The stranger gestures to Lucas. Both step in. The feed dies. At 12:17, the picture returns. Empty store, closed door, and drops on the floor leading toward the black exit. "That isn't your Ray?" Alvarez asked Miguel. "Ray doesn't buy things and never goes into the restroom," Miguel said. "The funeral had no body." I went back to my shift and met the new trainee. Kira Peters isn't the type to argue with thunder. She listened and asked practical questions. How long do we wait in the stockroom? What if a regular is off? Where's the salt? The salt isn't for seasoning. Sometimes it's a line the others won't cross. At 10:42, the restroom started to grind. The door bowed as if someone inside was shouldering it. Kira went pale, but stood firm. "What do we do?" "We work." 11 o'clock, 2 locks. 11:04, Ray came. I set him coffee. "Help," I whispered and glanced toward the restroom. He pressed his palm to the jamb. The silence thickened like it had been poured. He left, tipping the air as he moved, and vanished. A few nights later, Miguel called me into the stockroom and opened a metal cabinet I'd taken for junk. Inside lay lamps, water, and devices that looked like heavy flashlights carved with symbols. "Not weapons," he said. "Tools. You press, and what's trying to open gets pushed shut. It hurts them, not you." He handed me a folder of photos, maps, notes on thin places around Biscayne. We sit on the thinnest. One quiet evening, everything died again, even the tiny red LED on the wall switch. Outside, reflections lined up in the glass, out of sync with reality. Grinding came at once from 3 spots: the restroom, the stockroom, and the ceiling above the coffee bar. Ray appeared soundlessly. "Back," he said. We retreated to the stockroom where Miguel had the lamps lit. "This is a test," he said. "For us. For the boundary." The first bulge popped like a bubble from inside outward. Something without form groped up, becoming hands. I pressed the flashlight. It hummed low and squeezed the air. The thing collapsed and drew back. Second push, restroom door bowed. Hinges screamed like rust alive. Ray laid a hand on the frame. The bow slackened. Kira kept her beam exactly where a wrist was knitting itself of nothing. From the ceiling, a slow, perfect drop swelled, like a lens trying to become an eye. The noise and cold held until a gray stripe appeared far to the east, where Miami Beach begins. With that first pale line, the noise thinned. The tools cooled in our hands, and we heard the normal again. Refrigerators, a trickle in the sink, the far hush of the highway. Miguel only said, "Good." We drank water in silence and watched the world reassemble. After that night, the city turned another face to me. I saw thinness everywhere. At the Normandy Isles Pier, where water breathes in rings. In a trio of murals where the same eye watches from 3 different walls. At an intersection where a driver always signals a second before deciding. A priest in Little Havana gave me a pouch of coffee beans. Scatter it on the threshold when it smells like the sea more than it should. A santero showed me how to chalk a line that closes not the sidewalk but an intention. Sometimes Detective Alvarez came by just to talk. "You truly believe your store is a knot?" "I don't believe." "I know." He spread his hands. "Until the penal code adds crossing between worlds, all I can do is drink your coffee." He would leave with a small bag of salt for the kitchen, he said. I'd spot Ray outside the store too, by a bridge piling at an empty bus stop on 163rd by the water in mid-beach. He always faced the horizon. Once I thought he was floating on his back in a hotel pool, staring at the stars with no guard in sight. I didn't approach. Border keepers need their own borders. Kira kept a log of signs. Ordinary entries. Chalk, works, salt, rings, lamp, flickers different. Between them I tucked silent notes to my kids. Eva, don't fear thunder. Nikita, don't charge your phone under the pillow. Mom will be home soon. Sometimes I cooked soup for their breakfast on a tiny burner. Miguel allowed it, but made me check the flame before 11. Otherwise the food won't be for people. I didn't test that. The real turn for me came at 2:20 a.m. A fisherman walked in, weathered face, lures on his belt. Asked for rum. I refused. He didn't argue, took coffee. Pier at dawn, he said. 10 minutes later the door was rung, not by a hand, but as if someone pushed a button we didn't have. On the glass a short red word flashed, open. I stood 2 steps away and breathed steadily. Ray was beside me faster than my next inhale. He traced the word with a finger and it shattered into shards of light, like a broken red bulb. Not tea. Now I know our store isn't unique. There are many such points, by water, old roads, bridges. We're not heroes or victims. We're a watch. Our tools are locks, chalk, salt, that flashlight, and the habit of showing up on time. Our stories rarely end loudly. They end at morning when I take down the "back in a minute" sign and let the first customer out through the service door, because at 11:07 it's safer that way. Home is simple. Eva corrects my notes with her red pen. Nikita swears he'll make music better than anyone on the block. I listen to the AC and the frogs outside and sometimes draw a small mark on the threshold habit, like a seat belt. And if you ever see a woman on Biscayne at 10:59 holding a ring of keys and counting seconds, smile to her. She may be keeping closed more than a door.
Thumbs up if you believe raptors and wild rivers deserve protection, like, subscribe, and share. Bell turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story in this series. Disclaimer, this is a fictional narrative. No animals were harmed. We support legal, ethical hunting and conservation. Poaching is a crime.